Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today as we cover the top 5 tips to get started from our Zendesk for Startups program. So today we're going to get started with a little overview of Zendesk. So as you may know, Zendesk has customers in over 160 different countries. That's over 60 different languages and supports 27 Zendesk languages on the agent-facing side of over 119,000 accounts around the globe. So looking at these logos, you can really see that we cover all industries and size companies, but hopefully you recognize a few of these, and perhaps you've seen some Zendesk web widgets or have interacted with some of these companies through Zendesk yourself. So again, we can definitely say that we cover the broad range of everybody from startups to these large companies, organizations around the globe, and we're very proud of our amazing customer lineup. So in our history, we were founded in 2007, based now in San Francisco. We've grown to over 2,000 employees and those 119,000 customers since the company's founding a decade ago. We operate across the globe. We have 16 offices, and you'll see too that we note over 10,000 hours of volunteer work in those communities, those 16 cities around the globe. So we're very proud of that too. We love to be a part of the communities that we are in, where we have employees, and take that philosophy of kind of that customer service and empathy building work right out into our direct communities that we're a part of too. So we really try to live those values that we use to build the products that, that we are going to discuss today. So why are we here? Let's get started with our top 5 tips. The first and foremost being configuring your essential channels. So that's going to be different for every account, of course, but through working with hundreds of accounts, we do tend to see some trends. So first and foremost, we tend to see customers setting up their email channel. That is oftentimes the only way that a company is working with their customers. Perhaps it's direct emailing with a specific person. So say that person tries to leave on vacation, you might very well be missing some of your support requests as they go to a email inbox that may not be shared with a team. So this is often when people move to Zendesk, where you're then pushing those emails into a support environment where everybody has access to them. You're able to share the workload and triage those tickets to different teams, to different groups perhaps, or depending on the size of your team. Again, that might be just a small group of you, or you may have dedicated support professionals versus your sales team, your finance, your HR, everybody else. So when you set up that email and Zendesk support, the conversation is going to look a little like this, what we see there on the right, when it's passed through from support, and then when it goes back out to the customer, the way they see that ticket come through essentially just looks like an email to them. But on the back end, of course, you have a lot more power with automations and some workflows that you can build right into your account. And here we're seeing too that this initial ticket, you're able, just by setting up your support account right out of the box, by default, you're able to send a reply back directly to your customer, letting them know that you've received their request or their email. So again, right out of the box, hopefully you're getting a little more efficiency than you have been with your email inbox. So a next step there is our guide product and your help center. So while of course we love to have those personal interactions with every customer and that back and forth conversation, there is a lot to be said for self-service. When you set up your help center with articles, FAQs, hopefully your customers are able to go out there and find the answers to those easy questions themselves. We also make it very easy to customize that guide experience, that help center. So without having to be a developer and look at any code, you can quickly and easily modify the color palette, the fonts, and any images that you have. Here we're seeing that banner image behind the search bar be customized for Eat Well. So this is a great example of how you can quickly and easily make that environment your own and provide your customers with a self-service option that may be new to your organization. So this is great for your support team because it offers you ticket deflection. So those tickets never end up getting to your agents because those customers have already been helped. You're meeting your customers really where they're at. Research time and time again proves that customers want to find the answers to their own questions if at all possible. And it gives this seamless customer experience across all their devices. So our help center is by default mobile responsive. So be it they're on their phone or on their laptop, they're going to again see this branded and unique place to find all of the quick answers to the questions they have. And I would be remiss to not mention our social media channels. So you've likely been out on Facebook, Twitter, perhaps other places, looking at reviews on Google Reviews or even Instagram. But by default, through Zendesk Support's tool, you can quickly tie in your Facebook and Twitter feeds. So those also come through as tickets, which then you're able to triage and handle, respond to with those same automations that you're handling email or questions that couldn't be answered through your self-service queues right alongside this. So you're really seeing a more full circle picture of your customer wherever they're choosing to contact you from. So I'll just mention that those Twitter tickets, also called Twickets internally, can be created from either public mentions or direct messages. And Facebook tickets similarly can be created from wall posts or private messages and then responded to in the same way. So when you're configuring these channels, know that that agent's response is always going to match the end user's original method that they used. And so if an end user uses an @mention, your agents would need to respond publicly. So the private channels, of course, would then also be private and go back out through directly to that customer rather than visible on either the wall or a public Twitter post. Next, tip number 2 is to define your user access. So as much as you can set up those channels, of course, it all comes down to the people who you're actually trying to serve through them and communicate with. So on the back end side, within your Zendesk support instance, you have the separation between agents and administrators. And this is a really important step to consider right off the bat. Who is going to have that access to really configure the account, set up those features, have unrestricted access to tickets, to triggers, to automations, to work with that self-center piece, the help center and guide product. And so those administrators you would really want to limit to the core team who is responsible for setting up the account. Agents' primary responsibility should be to log in and see only what they have to focus on. So having a smaller group that's dedicated to a very specific task, be it a specific view, perhaps a queue of tickets. So again, if you have a support team versus a sales team versus a finance team, having a group for each of those and their own personal views and macros and group views and macros that are shared is a great way to make sure that they're not overwhelmed by seeing too many tickets, or even for security reasons, not seeing tickets that are not part of their groups. But of course, that level of access is all up to you. So within that, you have a range between an open Zendesk to a closed Zendesk. So while we were talking about your internal groups and what their access is to your internal environment, that same scale exists for your end users. So globally, we see kind of 3 different buckets of how we describe the configuration of access to your Zendesk, being an open Zendesk, a closed Zendesk, or a restricted Zendesk, which is somewhere in between. So an open Zendesk means that anyone is able to submit a support request. So this is the configuration you'd want to go with if you sell products and provide support to the general public. A new user who comes in to submit a support request is automatically going to have a user profile created for them. The most restricted setting you can configure is a closed Zendesk, which gives you complete control over who is going to use your account. A closed Zendesk could be used for an internal IT department. Perhaps they're used to using Zendesk to provide IT support for just the company's employees. So users would have to exist in your system or be set up with your existing SSO or something like that. Otherwise, their communications are going to be suspended and will not create tickets. And then in between, in this range, the gray area of a restricted Zendesk, you really have a lot of different flexibility and options. Restricted just means that only users with an email address of domains that you approve would be able to submit support requests, or using our whitelist or blacklist feature to define that access in a more granular way would give you something in this range that's between the open and closed Zendesk. So all of these configurations and really that restricted one just allows you to fine tune exactly your audience, who should have access to your self-service articles versus who has access to submit a ticket that's going to be handled by one of your support professionals or another team. The biggest setting that I just want to point out here, because of how integral it is to all of your access settings, is this at the very bottom of your settings, customers options. Right at the top, you see anybody can submit tickets. So when you click to enable that, that is your first step to making that be an open Zendesk. But then if we look down further to that, requiring CAPTCHA, the whitelist, the blacklist, asking users to register, these are all steps that move you towards that restricted section rather than a completely open account, whereas that completely closed account would be mostly set up through your security, your SSO, limiting that to an IP range, and different ways that you can close down the account to only be accessible to your defined user base. So next, once you have defined your channels and how you want your user base to be able to communicate with you, look into our custom ticket and user fields. So what data are you trying to track on those requests and on your users? So here we see some tips and tricks about our default versus our custom ticket fields. So by default with Zendesk, you are given the type and priority fields that we see at the top left here. The problem and incident relationship is unique to that built-in default Zendesk field. The priority field can be slightly tweaked to include an on hold status. And we'll take a look down below at these custom ticket fields then, where we're seeing a example of a resolution field. So this is a great, like I say, a great example of how and why you would use a custom drop-down field on your account and create that from scratch, because that how you resolve one of your problems is going to be unique to each of these accounts. So we'd really just encourage you to be specific and consistent with the categorizing and how you log those ticket types, and really try to confirm with this resolution field, what was the ultimate action here that came out of the ticket. And this is valuable in the long run for reporting. When you're able to report on, say, a year's worth of data of how issues were resolved, it's much clearer to see, is this team big enough? Are we able to resolve these, all of these tickets in a timely manner, or does this type of issue, this team that's handling this issue, and then how they're resolving it, are they supported well enough to really give you that gold star customer service we're all striving for? So by tracking all these types and looking at the reporting in the long run, this is really going to help you with your highest volumes of tickets to then create self-service articles and other ways that hopefully you could, again, help your customers help themselves. So it's a great thing to think about each individual ticket interaction as building out clear and accurate reporting that you can look back on in the long run. And it also helps you build relationships amongst all of your tickets and see those trends. So we would just say that best practice with your default tickets too is that everything is a question until it's not, until it becomes a larger problem that then is broken down into individual incidents or a task that has a specific due date. That question is sort of your generic issue that needs to be solved just in general. So that's kind of your go-to. Next, looking at our user and organization fields, this is where we are, instead of looking at that individual ticket interaction, this is looking at a person as a full picture of a person, where we're seeing all of those different interactions. So for instance, we see here that Cassie has 10 tickets that she's created, even though none are assigned to her as an end user. But on the side here, we're logging different components of who she is as one of our customers, or as one of our internal customers. Say this is a internal IT department use case. We see that she's in this specific department, what her title is, which office she's located in, and this gives us more details on our user base. So storing these relevant tidbits about your users is going to, again, help you with reporting in the long run of where are the needs, where is perhaps it's the team that's growing in Madison that needs more resources, and we need to staff up there to better handle their requests in a timely manner. So all of this can be used to drive faster resolution times and to filter out your customers, to determine where they're at and what their needs are, to hopefully, again, increase your agent productivity overall. So next, and this we could really have an entire section or entire webinar on, but diving or dipping a toe into your business rules is a great way to start. So first we're going to look at macros, and these are really actions. So the point of macros is to gain efficiency through these repeatable actions. You're creating standards, so looking at how you operate day to day and recognizing, oh, we see the same issue come across and this is how it should be handled. I'm going to create a macro that's going to help my agents, with a click of one button, throw in all these actions that are going to help them resolve this customer's issue. Another thing to point out, and what you can see demonstrated here in the animation, is using the nesting method to nest your macros underneath a category, so that your agents are able to not only search on them, but also drill through them if they're not quite certain which one they're looking for. So in this example, we're looking at an escalation macro, and we have a billing and a tier 2 escalation macro. So those would be different depending on where we want to send this ticket. But this just helps to eliminate those, how many clicks your agents are making. It empowers your agents to really do more with much less time, increasing their productivity. And then also, again, just sets those standards. You know that when these macros are being applied, that your tickets are being handled in the same way, regardless of which agent is handling them. Again, improving that customer experience overall, and hopefully resolution times. So on the flip side of our actions, we have our views, where we're drilling down into what specifics can we pick out about those tickets to then prioritize how we handle those tickets, and supporting the workflows that we have with any types of custom views. So we give you default views as soon as you spin up your account, which are great for guidance on how views should be structured and what we hope that people might be able to use them for. So you can take those default views and clone them or edit them to really suit your needs better. But these views are then the best way for you as an administrator to set up workflows for your agents. So you should have a queue, perhaps it's, looking at this example, perhaps it's unsolved tickets in your groups. Maybe it's your unsolved tickets every day. That's the first queue you work out of. And then you move on to those unassigned tickets. And you can just hit the play feature as an agent to be served the very first ticket that has not been handled yet, has no other agent in it. And again, as an administrator, if you set up those views to prioritize your tickets already, so the most pressing ticket is right at the top of that view, then again, your agents don't have to do any grunt work to figure out where to start their day. They just hit play out of the view they're supposed to go into, and boom, they can start handling those tickets. So this is going to eliminate a lot of confusion. you as an admin are then able to say what's most urgent and set their priorities for them without having to micromanage or send out a list every day. And you're also able to clearly see your unresolved volumes just by taking one quick peek at your views. So hopefully, again, this enables you to have faster response and resolution times by clearing up the clutter and being able to filter your tickets to see those up to the minute volumes of where you're at. So, you know, if this was our queue, I would say, well, this is fantastic. We have no unassigned tickets and only one unsolved ticket in our group. So maybe this is where I need to focus my attention right now to make sure we get to 0. And then we have our triggers and conditions. So Zendesk provides these different conditions that are then used almost like a combination of both our views and our macros. So we have these default triggers as well, which also serve as a great example of this is how you might want to structure those triggers. This is how we can hone in on this is a given situation, if this, then that, then we take this action. So check out your business rules triggers section and take a look at these different notify requester of received request, the comment updates, to get a sense for how these triggers are used and how integral they are to your Zendesk account. If you were to turn off all of these triggers, set them to inactive, you could be working on tickets, but these are what are responsible for sending any responses or notifications out to your team, out to your end users. So again, it's great to get familiar with those conditions, learn how to best use these triggers, because that is really what's going to give you so much more efficiency and power beyond your inbox. So finally, we'll just take a look at automations, and really here the biggest difference between triggers and automations is that your automations are time-based rather than those condition-based, which then every time you submit a ticket or a new ticket comes in, it's going to check against all your triggers. So these automations are only set up to cascade through all of our accounts on the hour. So looking through your automations that you have in your account already, there's just one by default, which is this one, this closed ticket 4 days after status is set to solved. So giving that title or giving that automation a very clear title is a great best practice so that you know what that time parameter is and what that automation is responsible to do. So you can create these automations to set up those rules and workflows that are more time-based rather than something that would be more action-based, like I say, an email response coming in from your end user or an agent updating several fields and assigning to another team and hitting submit. But these automations can be great to skip some of those manual reviews and processes where perhaps you have calendar reminders out there, you know, send this customer an email to remind them about this event or something that is, again, more of a time-based reminder. These automations can really help as well to cut out some of that manual work and then be used in more standardized ways. So we know that every customer is getting an update after 24 hours that they have not received or they haven't responded to us with information we need in order to resolve their ticket. This one is a great example, though, of how a ticket is moved from solved to a closed status. You're not able to manually set a ticket to closed. So an automation is always going to be responsible or is usually responsible for that. So that once a status is set to solved and we've given the customer, the end user, 4 days to respond if they had any additional questions or if the problem popped up again before it's moved to closed. Again, this is a great example of when you would use those time-based actions versus a condition-based, action-based trigger. So finally, we'll just take a quick look at apps. So once you've, again, established which channels you're using, how your users are going to connect and communicate with you, and then looked at all of your different business rules and how to set up any types of automations that you potentially can. this last final step I'll mention is just to take a look at our apps marketplace. There's so much that is possible out here. We have over 700 pre-built apps and integrations in place. And so I almost guarantee that you will find something that is going to help you operate more efficiently as a support organization. But a quick note, your apps can be placed in different spots across your Zendesk account. So I just want to point out that you may have noticed some of these in your top navigation bar along the very top of the screen in your Zendesk support instance. And then there's the main navigation scene. So this is down the left side where I'm highlighting the advanced search app, again, to the very far left of the screen here. And then within a ticket, which might be what you're first looking to add or most used to, but within the body of an existing ticket, the apps panel is an option to open or close. And what we see scrolling down the right side of the page right now is that apps panel within a ticket. You also have the option to exclusively add this app to a new ticket. So in the body of a ticket that's first being created by an agent versus an ongoing ticket. And then there are also options for apps within your user and organization profiles. So in that same right-hand side of the screen, within your user organization profiles, you can also write apps or include apps for those as well. So there are so many different external softwares or systems that you might be using that would be beneficial to bring into Zendesk or have some visibility back and forth. But the ones I want to mention just quickly as a quick guide to where to start, as it might be a little overwhelming, I would advise you to check out our Zendesk Labs apps. So within our marketplace, you'll notice that there's some different categories of those. And so the Zendesk Labs are free support apps that we have made internally, oftentimes to resolve an issue that we have noticed or extend functionality of Zendesk that, that we as our own agents working in Zendesk want to see. So here is an example of a sort of a CRM light app called the User Data app. And so if you're putting custom user and organization fields on those user and org records, you'd be able to, within a ticket, rather than switching back out, toggling between the user or org tabs and the ticket, you're able to see that right alongside the ticket. And looking through this, you see not only their contact information at the top, but how many different tickets they have and what status, any tags that are present, and all of this is customizable. So you could add or exclude any of the items you see here or any of the custom fields that you're including in your account. So this is just a great one where it provides your agents with a snapshot of that customer right within the ticket so they don't have to spend time toggling back and forth. So really any clicks that we're able to avoid hope to increase that agent productivity. So this is a great app that I might recommend to start with if you're not quite sure looking through the marketplace which to try out to get a feel for those apps. So finally, we'll just take some questions and spend a few moments crowdsourcing these and reviewing any of the information today that you may need to dive a little deeper into. And thanks for your time.